Have you ever looked back and realized our parents didn't have much, yet somehow they seemed happier than we are today? They didn't have smartphones, online investment accounts, or any idea what financial independence or passive income meant. What they did have was a steady job, family dinners, and a quiet belief that tomorrow would be okay. And then there's us, the so-called smart and successful generation. We earn more, but we also worry more. We have more choices, yet less freedom than ever before. We live in an age of abundance, but rarely feel fulfilled. Maybe that's the paradox of modern wealth. We're not short of money, we're short of the feeling of enough. That's exactly why Brian Portnoy wrote The Geometry of Wealth, a book not about doubling your assets, but about shaping your life so money becomes a tool, not a trap. He calls it funded contentment, peace of mind that's supported by money, not controlled by it. And if you've ever asked yourself, why am I working so hard? When will it ever feel like enough? Then maybe this is the book you've been looking for. In today's video, we'll explore 6 profound ideas from The Geometry of Wealth to understand why true wealth isn't a destination, but a journey toward a deeper sense of enough. Part 1. Wealth is a feeling of enough, not a number. Brian Portnoy opens The Geometry of Wealth with a truth most of us rarely face. We're not short of money, we're short of the feeling of enough. After more than 20 years of working with people across the wealth spectrum, from middle-class families in Chicago to millionaires on Wall Street, he noticed one thing they all shared. No matter how many zeros appeared in their bank accounts, most of them still felt uneasy. There was that quiet fear. What if it all falls apart? Or that whisper we all know too well, maybe just a little bit more, just a little. That just a little more is the trap. It becomes an endless loop where we chase the next promotion, the next investment, the next milestone, and forget to ask the most important question: enough for what? Portnoy puts it simply: true wealth isn't about how much you have, it's about knowing how much you need to feel at peace. And that's a radically different idea from how modern society defines success. We're told to work harder, invest smarter, earn faster, but no one ever teaches us how to feel enough. Think about John, a 40-year-old marketing manager in Seattle. He has a house, a car, a healthy 401k, and a lovely family. But every morning, he wakes up with a quiet emptiness. Even though everything seems fine, he still scrolls through LinkedIn to see what others are doing, checks his stock portfolio every hour, and wonders why he's not more successful. Then there's Maria, an elementary school teacher. She doesn't have a flashy investment portfolio, but she feels fulfilled because her time goes to what she values most: her students, her family, and her little garden behind the house. Both John and Maria earn a stable income, but only one of them is truly wealthy, because she understands what money can't buy: peace of mind. Brian Portnoy calls this funded contentment, peace that's supported by money, not controlled by it. And in that sense, money stops being the goal and becomes the means to live in alignment with your values. And the paradox is this: when you stop obsessing over money, you actually make better financial decisions, think more long-term, and almost ironically, become wealthier, both spiritually and materially. Because in the end, wealth isn't what sits in your wallet. It's that quiet ability to sit still and smile in a world that never stops moving. Part 2. The 3 Geometries of Wealth: Purpose, Priorities, and Peace. Brian Portnoy believes that wealth isn't a straight line, it's a geometry of life, where 3 elements, purpose,
Priorities and peace intertwine to form the foundation of true financial well-being. He calls this idea the geometry of wealth, a simple framework that can completely reshape how we think about money. 1. Purpose. What is money for? Most people make money without ever asking why. We work, we save, we invest, but rarely do we pause to ask, what truly makes life meaningful for me? Portnoy once advised a businessman from Boston, a man who owned 3 companies, a yacht, and a vacation home in Florida. But when Portnoy asked him, "What would you do if money were no longer an issue?" the man went silent for a long moment, then quietly said, "I don't know." For Portnoy, that was the greatest failure of success. Because when you don't know why you're living, every financial achievement loses its meaning. Purpose is the origin point of this geometry. It's not about money, it's about direction. 2. Priorities. Knowing what to keep and what to let go of. Once you understand your purpose, you have to set your priorities. Money will never be enough for everything, so freedom comes from choosing wisely what truly deserves your resources. As Portnoy writes, "You can't buy everything, but you can buy what matters most, if you know what that is." Here's the irony. Many Americans spend thousands every year on cars, clothes, and luxury vacations, yet feel guilty about investing in health, education, or time off. We spend for status instead of spending for quality of life. Getting your priorities right is the only real path out of the feeling of scarcity. Because when your spending reflects your true values, you no longer have to prove anything to anyone. 3. Peace, the ultimate goal of wealth. When your purpose is clear and your priorities are aligned, peace naturally follows. Portnoy calls this the quiet mind, a state where you can sleep well without checking your account balance every night, because you know you're on the right path. It's not indifference, it's a deep confidence that no matter whether the market goes up or down, no matter what others boast about, you can stand firm because you're living according to your own map. In the end, Portnoy reminds us, the geometry of wealth isn't about more money. It's about better alignment. It's not about having more, but about seeing clearly how money, time, and meaning intersect. And when purpose, priorities, and peace line up, money stops being a burden and becomes a natural, harmonious part of a life well lived.
Part 3. The psychology of money. Emotion drives every decision. Brian Portnoy writes, "We don't live in an economy of reason. We live in an economy of emotion. No one truly makes decisions with data. We make them with feelings and then use logic to justify them afterward. Imagine checking your investment account. One day, the S&P 500 jumps 3%, and suddenly you feel confident, maybe even smarter than usual. But a few weeks later, the market drops 10%. Now you feel anxious and a little regretful for being too greedy too soon. The funny thing is, the companies you invested in haven't changed. Only your mood has. And it's those emotions, not the facts, that drive most of our financial behavior. Portnoy calls this the behavioral gap, the space between knowing and doing. Everyone knows buy low, sell high, but when the market crashes, almost everyone follows the crowd. Everyone says they invest for the long term, but one bad headline can send them running for the exits. As he puts it, the market doesn't make you poor. Your emotions do. Take the 2008 financial crisis, for example. Many investors panicked and sold everything at the bottom, only to miss one of the strongest bull runs of the next decade. Meanwhile, those who stayed calm, not because they were smarter,
but because they managed their fear, became the real winners. Emotions aren't the enemy, but if you don't understand them, you'll end up being controlled by them. Portnoy emphasizes that to achieve true wealth, we must transform our emotions from fear, greed, and comparison into calmness and clarity. That doesn't come from reading more news or checking your stock prices every day. It comes from understanding yourself. Knowing the market is important, but knowing yourself is even more important. The lesson is simple. If you want to control your money, you must first learn to control your mind. Because in the end, real wealth doesn't live in your portfolio. It lives in your ability to stay at peace while the world around you spins out of balance.
Part 4. The Geometry of Calm. Shaping a financial curve that fits your life. Imagine your life as a piece of geometry, not a rigid straight line, but a soft curve that bends and flows through your work, dreams, family, and finances. Brian Portnoy calls this idea the geometry of wealth, a map that isn't measured in dollars, but in peace of mind. He says most of us live by society's straight line: study, work, earn, spend, retire. That line looks logical, but it's exhausting because it only moves in one direction, forward. Life, however, is not a straight line. It's a curve, with pauses, turns, and moments of slowing down just long enough to see what truly matters. Portnoy suggests that instead of asking, "How can I make more money?" we should ask, "Where is this money taking me?" It sounds simple, but that question becomes the turning point, the bend in your personal financial curve. Consider this. One person works 80 hours a week to afford their dream home, but never has time to live in it. Another chooses a smaller house, but gets to have dinner with their kids every night. Both are successful, but only one is truly happy. In the Geometry of Wealth, Portnoy lays out 3 core ideas: purpose, priorities, and tactics. Most people do it backwards. They start with investment tactics and only later try to assign them a purpose. But the geometry of peace starts from the opposite direction. It begins with why. If you know what you're drawing, every line has meaning. The beauty of your financial curve is that it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to fit you. If you value stability, your curve might be smooth and steady. If you thrive on challenge, yours might be steeper. Just remember to rest along the way. Because as Portnoy reminds us, money is not the destination, it's the path. When you understand your own geometry, you stop comparing your map to someone else's. And that's when true financial peace begins. When you can look at the path you've drawn and quietly smile, yes, this is what happiness looks like for me. Part 5. The Art of Simple Investing. Less, but better. Brian Portnoy once said, "Complexity is a sign of fear. Simplicity is a mark of understanding." And if you've ever felt overwhelmed by the markets, with headlines flashing, indexes swinging, and experts on CNBC contradicting each other every hour, you're not alone. We live in an age of financial information overload, where people believe the only way to get rich is to be smarter, faster, and riskier than everyone else. But Portnoy reveals a deeper paradox. The smartest investors I've ever met aren't the ones who know the most. They're the ones who know what to ignore. In The Geometry of Wealth, he tells a story about a friend who once asked him, "How do you stay calm when the market crashes?" Portnoy smiled and replied, "Because I'm not invested in the market, I'm invested in my plan. It sounds simple, but that's the essence of what he calls the art of simple investing. You don't have to beat the market. You just have to fit with it. He outlines 3 timeless principles, unremarkable at first glance, but they've guided millions toward true financial freedom. 1. Invest in what you understand. You don't need a portfolio of 20 different stocks. 1 or 2 simple index funds can give you exposure to the entire economy. It's like a buffet. You don't need to eat everything to feel full. Sometimes one good dish is enough to sustain the whole journey. 2. Keep costs low. Over time, what kills returns isn't market crashes. It's the small, hidden fees. A 1% annual management fee can quietly erase nearly 20% of your wealth over 30 years. It's the silent tax of complexity that few people notice. 3. Automate. So discipline becomes a habit. Let the system work for you. Save automatically, invest automatically, because emotions are the enemy of strategy. Portnoy compares investing to photography. When beginners start, they think great shots come from expensive gear, fancy lenses, and complex settings. But the best photographers know how to subtract, to remove distractions, and keep only the light, the frame, and the moment. Investing is the same. It's not about controlling everything. It's about knowing what's worth controlling and letting the rest unfold on its own. When you learn to simplify, investing stops feeling like a chaotic game and starts to feel like a ritual of calm. You stop reacting to the noise and start trusting the process. Portnoy calls this the Zen of investing, when simplicity not only helps you make more money, but also helps you sleep better at night. Wealth doesn't come from knowing more, but from knowing less and knowing it deeply. Sometimes doing less is the smartest way to get things right.
Part 6. Wealth is not a destination, but a meaningful journey. Think back to the last time you achieved a big financial goal. Maybe a surprise bonus, a milestone number in your bank account, or that glorious day you made your final debt payment. It felt amazing, didn't it? But then, after a few days, maybe a few weeks, everything went back to normal. We set new goals, chase after more, move faster, and once again the idea of enough drifts further away. Brian Portnoy calls this the endless race, where most of us keep running but forget to ask the most important question. Where are we actually running to? In The Geometry of Wealth, Portnoy tells the story of a man he once advised. He was a successful CEO, lake house, luxury cars, an investment portfolio worth tens of millions of dollars. But when Portnoy asked him, "Are you happy?" the man paused and quietly said, "I'm so busy, I don't have time to live the life I once dreamed of." That moment changed Portnoy's perspective forever. He realized that wealth isn't a destination you reach with money. It's a journey you take where money is simply the tool that gives you the freedom to choose your path. He paints a beautiful picture. If life is a map, money is the compass. It helps you find direction, but it doesn't tell you where to go. The true value of money isn't in the number itself, but in what it allows you to do, to live according to your values, to have time for the people you love, to have the freedom to say no to things that don't fit, to help others without hesitation or fear. That's what Portnoy calls the geometry of enough, when money, meaning, and peace of mind form a complete circle. He writes, "The goal of money isn't to buy more, it's to worry less." It sounds simple, but it's the philosophy behind his entire book. Because financial serenity doesn't come from controlling everything. It comes from no longer being controlled by money. And that's when you're truly rich, not because you have a lot, but because you finally feel enough. Portnoy concludes with a line that many American readers nodded in silence. Wealth is funded contentment. It's not the rest you take after winning the race. It's a state of being where you realize every single day you already have enough to live a meaningful life. So, the Geometry of Wealth isn't a manual on how to become a millionaire. It's a guide to mastering the art of feeling enough, so that every dollar you earn and every choice you make moves you closer to something far more valuable than wealth itself. A life that truly matters. Don't ask how much money you have in the bank. Ask how much of your money is helping you live the life you truly want. If you're looking to move from earning a living to living for what you love, check out the link to the Geometry of Wealth in the description below. You can dive deeper into the book or gift it to someone who's been too busy making money to remember how to truly live. Because in the end, real wealth isn't a destination. It's the meaningful journey you choose to walk every single day.